All right. So we're back. We're game 1014 in the summer 2017 semester, and we are week 6, part 3 of our broadcast. We're talking about software ratings. We didn't have a chance to do this morning too much. I kind of skipped through it. So for the people that are watching this from the morning section, here it is. This would be the last topic that we're talking about for the exam, right? Which covers most of the things that I want to talk about from the book. All right, so really when we talk software ratings, it's all about age, right? At the end of the day, right? And also content. Like if it's something, sometimes you might be old enough to see something, but you don't want to see it. You know, the old saying, which is after you've seen something, you can't unsee it, right? It's kind of true. And sometimes we can see some games that are, there could be a lot of graphic violence nowadays. You can really depict blood very, very nicely, right? A lot of other kinds of things, not just the graphics, but the themes could be quite scary. There's some games that you probably wouldn't want to put up on VR, you know, those kind of things. And you know, we put software ratings around games that can create problems from some people. So it's required. This is not something we can get outside of ourselves when we're in the software industry, especially when it comes to games. Both the movie industry and the software industry, it's required by law when you publish a game and something entertaining, that it has to go to this rating board in order for them to approve the rating or give a rating to a game. And sometimes what it'll do is it will prevent a game from being published if it goes on long enough, especially if there is any kind of controversy as to something that's in the game that shouldn't be in there. All right, so the ESRB is the one in the States. The PEGI is the one in Europe, and then there's also the Australian Classification Board. All those 3 markets are quite large. There's also one in Japan. So when you create a game, guys, you got to make it kind of accessible. If you want to go across market and market it somewhere else, then you have to not just apply at the ESRB, but in other places as well. And here are an example of some software rating categories. So an example would be things like teen or mature. There might be some that include violence. One that includes everyone. Anyone have a PS4? Anyone have a PS4? You might have to. You know, you can actually turn on the ratings for according to the ratings actually in your game. You can kind of use family settings to turn off the ability for that person, that user, to access your game. It's not exactly like that at Microsoft, on the Microsoft side on Xbox, but it's interesting that, you know, Sony brings the whole rating system right into their console. The ability for you to shut these kind of games down if they don't meet the criteria of the parent. Why? Because nowadays, these days, you know, we don't just buy games with a box. We don't go to EB Games and buy something there. We download it, right? I know I download more games nowadays than I ever buy anymore. Why? Because I don't have anything to give back. There's no disc, right? I have lots of space on my console. If it's a PC game, same thing. I buy from Steam or whatever. I don't buy anything. There's nothing to buy anymore like there used to be, at least not for me. I mean, I might get a game from somebody once in a while. I'm like, oh, damn, it's a disc, you know? But then if you get a disc, you got to load it up. You got to download some stuff. And by the time it works, it might take an hour for you to download this bloody game. Oh, there's no instruction booklets anymore. No one gives instruction booklets anymore. Yeah, there's just walkthroughs online. If you want to find a walkthrough, there's tons after a while, right? But otherwise, that's it, right? So the main areas of concern when it comes to ratings, because we're going to get these downloads, we're going to download games, and not just this, but movies as well, is violence, language, drug use, you know, adult themes, believe it or not, right? Which is kind of weird. You know, I mean, some people want to see those kind of games, but I'm always embarrassed. I mean, if I'm playing an Xbox game and there's 2 people kissing on the game, I'm like, what the heck, right? Like, and my kid is looking at me going, "Daddy, the 2 characters are the pixels are kissing." He says that to me sometimes, right? GTA had lots of issues with that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why? It's okay, fine, but okay. I mean, they're trying to make it more cinematic. I get it, right? From a story point perspective, I get it, but it still seems kind of off, especially when the models aren't perfect.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a Mass Effect. Also criminal acts, like for example, GTA, you mentioned GTA. There's a great example of criminal acts being glorified, right? Okay, that's fun sometimes. We can play act, what it would be like to be a criminal. But for some kids, they don't understand the difference between play acting and the real thing. It's almost like a training manual for them to go and do the same thing. And so that's why we shut it down. We create these ratings. So again, they think about things. There's some differences between boards. Here's an example. It's not about age-appropriate stuff. It's also about realistic humans and violence. In this case, PEGI, the European board, and against non-realistic humans. It's okay to kill non-realistic human-looking people, or things, but not cool to kill or do violence, crazy violent acts against realistic-looking humans with realistic blood and effects, that kind of stuff. And I think it's going to get more and more like this, especially with the, we're just at the onset of VR commercially. I think at this point, we're still. I don't think it's commercially 100% commercially viable yet. Still, I still think we need another couple of years or so, but it's going to come upon us pretty quick. This idea of VR. Anyone go to a movie these days and they sit in the 3D theater and they go, "Why the heck is this movie 3D? There's no reason for it." But everything is 3D, yeah, everything. You go see Wonder Woman, there's no 3D in that, but it's 3D, right? You can hardly get to a theater that's not 3D. 3D movies has high resolution, right? The colors are muted, right? There's all kinds of problems with 3D movies, right? But we just accept it. It's just a 3D experience, but there's nothing 3D in the movie. It's just you have to put your glasses on and watch the show. I think it's gonna be the same thing with VR. You're gonna go into a theater, you're gonna put your VR lenses on, you're gonna watch a show, and there's no reason for you to be sitting in VR. You're probably going to see the seat in front of you and then something going on, but there's no reason for it. It's just they want to immerse you into the entertainment. And until entertainers, movie makers, and so on understand how to immerse you and include you in the storyline somehow, I don't know, holodeck comes to mind, right, from Star Trek. Until they get to that point, I think it's going to be like a 3D experience. It's just going to be another ride, right? But the problem with that is once we get into VR, this rating system is going to be really important, because imagine sitting there and feeling realistic blood splatter on your pants, or I don't know, seeing someone die, or some really weird thing that you're afraid of, like a spider or something that's massive and it's in your face and it's real. So that's where we have, and I'm not saying I'm afraid of spiders. I'm saying people are afraid of different things, heights, spiders, fire, all kinds of stuff that can come up to play. Things that they're, snakes, whatever, name it. People have their phobias. And imagine if they're immersed in this thing. Watching a movie is one thing, but imagine if you have acrophobia or something and you're like, fear of heights, and they put you on the top of a building. It's like, reminds me of the Matrix in some ways. But these ratings are going to be something that are, okay, we accept them now and we let them by. We're like, it's okay, it's a rating for the system. M for mature, good, it's going to be violence, that's good. I want that. But tomorrow it's going to be something we have to watch. All right, so here's some examples of descriptions. So you have your rating, and then you have descriptors. There's two different things, categories and descriptors. Here's some: blood and gore, language, tobacco reference, comic mischief. I like that one. And there's other ones for PEGI and for the other boards. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. But those are the ones they have, right? Now, whenever you make your game, you need to have it for your demos, so it needs to be rated. So whenever you go to the board, you have to have a rating in order for you to put out to the public a demo, any kind of game trailer, any of that stuff. And this costs money. It costs money because you have to apply, you have to give your application, you have to send your demo and all materials. I mean, I'm talking everything from your start screen, your user interface, your manual, all that stuff's going to be sent to them. Right? Because there could be material in all that stuff that's inappropriate, right? For children, and they review it all, and the review process can take months, right? So you want to get your demo out to them. That's why the whole alpha, beta, final or release candidate stuff is put up that way, because you want to get a preliminary rating from the board as soon as possible, because it can take a long time. It can delay a release, which is terrible. So like it says here, only a full version of the game can be used to determine the rating. So you can't just put out, I mean, they can give you a preliminary rating, but they can't say it's going to be whatever it is, because what if you add additional levels and the levels themselves are inappropriate or something else after they've reviewed the partial build of your game. So you don't get a final rating until that final version comes out. So sometimes you get unrated or rating to be determined, one of those kind of things. All right. A couple of things to note is if you want to sell your game in big places like Costco, Target, Walmart, they won't sell your game without a rating. And same thing now with Amazon. Amazon won't sell, and Amazon is the biggest retailer in the world. If you don't have a rating for your game, they won't sell it, right? Doesn't mean that Steam won't. Steam is a different market altogether. They might sell your game anyway, right? But then again, the stuff that goes on Steam sometimes is, is someone who made a Unity game with the assets from the asset store, and they publish it on Steam for $1, right? But it has nothing to do. They've never made an asset in their life. They're just using assets from the asset store to create a game. It's horrible. So there's a lot of ratings in terms of, these are the major ones for the States. So early childhood, everyone 10 plus, teen, mature, adults only. I almost never see that rating, truly. And rating pending, which we see a lot, especially when you have a trailer. Sometimes they allow trailers with rating pending, but typically they don't nowadays. PEGI has a bunch of other ones, and Germany has their own. I'm not going to even try to pronounce that one, but they have their own board, right? And they're one of the biggest markets in Europe. And so, for me, I think it's wise to think about what your audience is, right? So think about this now. The wider the audience, the more market, right? If you target an audience that's very small, like for example, adult only, right, would be a very small market. You might still get response from that, but there's a risk that you're chopping off a bunch of places. There's some countries that won't even accept your game, like Australia. Australia won't even accept it, huh?
Germany and Australia are notoriously.
They're rough, they're tough, and they're very strict about that. And the reason for it is because they want to control the entertainment. They want to control what kind of.
Also under specific issues. I remember Wolfenstein had issues.
Yes, yes.
They cannot have any depictions.
Religious Nazi,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah. And it makes sense. It makes sense for them because it's something that's really a pain point for Germany.
Yeah.
Right. So I know Wolfenstein. They just announced Wolfenstein now too. The new Wolfenstein's coming. I'm waiting for that one. Right. But it won't be going in Germany. Germany won't have it. Right.
How does the whole Easter egg does not rate online interactions thing work when you publish?
Because what happens? That's an MMO, right? Because you cannot rate. How can you rate what I'm going to say in a group chat? And so it's mature. A lot of times, you have to think about it. Chances are there might be a mature chat, even if you play Overwatch nowadays. How many times you played Overwatch where some kid is screaming FFFF all the time, right?
But I don't think Smile was marketed as a mature game. Like a kid could walk into Walmart and buy a World of Warcraft game time card, for example.
Yeah, but on there it says in there, it's like, we cannot guarantee what's going to happen online. And they do that as a disclaimer because how can you, right? I mean, it's really up to the parents to when they see the kid buying game World of Warcraft.
But they're like, no rating already, and they will sell your product still, like Walmart and stuff like that. So
Walmart will be very careful. Walmart, especially in the States, they're very strict, right?
Okay.
So, and Amazon too. I'm telling you, they won't just sell anything, right? So, so think about it. You're making a game. Make sure your market, depending on what your market is, that's how chances are you'll sell it, right? If you make it for everybody, there's a bigger market in some ways, but also a smaller market in other ways, right? If you target, sometimes people don't want to play everyone games because those games are for kids, right? Example would be the Lego games, yeah. Who's going to publish it? You?
Yeah, like the game and publishers.
Sure. I mean, you can do it. You can do whatever you want, but what would you rather do? Publish it yourself or publish it in Walmart or Costco or Amazon? No, you don't have to. I mean, if you're gonna, I mean, if it goes to the public, you're required. They can shut you down, right? Because what if a kid picks up your game, right? And what if he shares it with his buddy and it's like some kind of graphic violence? You can't. It's like me making porn. Sorry to say this. I don't know where that came from. And then I sell it, somewhere. I mean, people need to know what I'm making, right? So it doesn't matter if you're producing something, whether it's on App Store or whatever. You need to get it rated by the. Yes, they can do that, but like I said, if it's something that becomes popular, that's where the risk is. The risk is when it becomes popular and it's unrated, right?
It's about the specific laws of the specific country you're selling.
They might shut you down. They might block your website. It depends on what you say. Like if you say, if in the game, for example, you're really graphic, you have, I don't know, something really opinionated or critical, and maybe we can have a conversation about this afterwards because I want to record this. But you get to the point where you can draw a lot of negative attention. So yes, you can do it. Should you do it? Is the answer. If you want to make money, I mean, really, what are we doing this for fun? If you're doing this for fun, right? Fantastic. Do whatever you want. But if you're doing this for money, then this is a consideration, right? You want to target your audience, and you want to think about how your game is going to rate, right? It's just a consideration, right? So think about this. I mean, there's going to be a market where if I'm going to make a game that that functions for mature audiences, I want to make a first-person shooter. It's not going to be for everyone, but it's going to have a market. Probably ages from 17 to 30, to 49. There's going to be a market in there for my game, right? Let's talk about Europe. It's all around age for Europe. So PEGI 3 is 3 years old, PEGI 7 years old. It's kind of a very simplified system, 12, 16, and 18, which is pretty cool. Germany is a different way of doing things. This is interesting. It says games are legally required to be submitted for ratings. Here's something for you for Germany, right? Legally required. If software publishers do not comply with this, they will be prosecuted, right? In Germany, right? I'm serious. Yeah.
Let's say I have my own website.
Yeah.
My game on website.
Right.
And if people in Germany don't like it,
They'll send you hate mail telling you to turn it down, right?
Yeah, but they can shut down the server.
No, but they'll just block your server. They can do a bunch of stuff.
Canada absolutely can do that.
They can.
We have much more stricter censorship laws than
We do. Yeah, we do.
Do something that's considered against the public good, but it has to be really bad. It has to be really bad.
Well, like example, I don't know, teaching a kid from a video game that it's okay to kill might be something that's considered maybe something that you shouldn't do, right? Because they're gonna probably shut you down, right?
You say that Germany is legally required for it to have it rated.
Yeah.
What if I don't do that?
Well, then they'll shut you down. They'll shut you down and they'll fine you, right?
They'll take your earnings.
My game is not like valid, but it doesn't have rating.
They can shut you down. They
It
will.
does not have any rating, even though it's not valid.
They will fine you. They will fine you depending on how bad it is. They might.
No, I'm saying my game is not bad. It's not a bad game. It just didn't have
They will fine you.
It's a bad game for not having a rating.
They will fine you. Because they don't know what's in there. They haven't had a chance to look at it before it goes up to the public. Yeah. Now, again, let's be honest. This stuff happens. Like you're talking about a web game, right? That's one thing. But if you're talking about a real game that you're going to distribute, that's what we're talking about here. Web games are on the gray spokes of the wheel, right? Because you can have a server in somewhere else, they can shut that server down. They can kill the IP address in that particular space, right? So you can't even your game won't even be seen in Germany, right? If they want to, especially if your server's in the U.S. or Canada, they can't do anything, right? To some degree, yeah.
I think like he's saying like how he's in Canada right now. If he didn't review his game or like didn't give it a rating and put it
If you put it on a German website,
Germany would prosecute him.
No. They would just shut it down. They would shut it down.
I think they wouldn't allow people in Germany access to your website.
Correct.
Okay, one person compete.
If you were a German citizen, if you were living there, or if you had a game that was on a German web server,
then they would.
Then they could,
Yeah.
right? And that's where it goes. So this is the thing. And if you try to distribute your game like as a big company, let's say Bethesda, try to distribute their game like in Germany without a rating, they would be fined, right? Or even prosecuted. All right. ACB in Australia. Australia is another place where it's really, really strict. You got to be really careful because they have their settings are G, PG, M. And again, it's younger than the M is advisory rating that, for children under 15. Then there's M15 plus and RC, which is refused classification. If you get an RC on your game, you're done, right? They do not have classification beyond that, and it's a bad thing. It'll kill your game in that particular area. Zero is another one from Japan, the Computer Entertainment Rating Organization, right? They also have it. They're not as strict. I'm telling you right now, they're not as strict in Japan as they are here. But the thing is, again, think about this. It's all pretty much the same. So takeaways from this one, from ratings, is this. Think about your target audience. If you're going to do a real AAA game or you're thinking about having an indie studio making its own game, especially if you're going to put things up on the App Store, think about what your target audience is, right? Who's your target audience? And what can you do to take away elements? Sometimes, we take away things like realistic blood, right? We make it so, like, I've seen games where they change blood into butterflies, right? Someone gets hit and it's a bunch of butterflies, right? Someone gets hit and it's a bunch of stars, right? There's no blood, right? Someone gets hit and it's a bunch of stakes. You've seen that before too, right? There's all kinds of stuff that comes out. So they take away the blood and violence aspect and they make it into a funny game, right? And that can reduce the rating and increase the size of your audience, which is really what you want to do here. That's what it is for you. That's what we're talking about. Although I have to say that the real reason for ratings is to protect children. All right, we have to say that too. But really, when it comes to a company, if you have your own company, it's about money, right? It's about money. And the larger your audience, the more money you can make, right? The smaller your audience, the less possibility of money. And a good example of that is this. If I make a story, I don't know, that's a niche story that's going to really hit a niche market, something small, right? Only a few people are going to like almost like a cult following. It's going to be a very small number of people that want to see that story. However, if I want to make a story that's available to all audiences, Wonder Woman, right, as an example, then that's going to be maximum, kind of saturation in terms of money, right? Wonder Woman is there's some, think about Wonder Woman as a movie. This is lately, right? Anyone not see Wonder Woman? Okay, I don't want to kill it for you guys. Some people may not like it, but my opinion on it, my critique on it is I liked the adventure part of Wonder Woman, right? If I was going to say something. However, I thought that the hero defeating the stupid villain at the end was really bad. And it happens in many, many superhero movies, right? However, it appeals to a large audience, right? We want to hear, I know you're shaking your head, but it appeals to the average American film goer, right? Because they want to see the Hollywood ending, right? That the good person wins at the end, right? The person that's the protagonist in the story somehow makes it through, right? And this idea of even the idea of what I talked about a couple weeks ago with Joseph Campbell, the whole hero's journey idea, right? Which by the way will be on your exam, hero's journey. Please look at that. That idea is formulaic, right? And once we start going down the line of formula, you might hate that because it's very by the book. It's almost like, again, we're creating a structure for something that maybe shouldn't be a structure. But we're doing the structure because we want to hit more people in the audience. We want to target people so we can make more money. That's what the film industry does. And you know what? Games are entertainment. Think about this today, the value of a game. I go to a movie, it's going to cost me $35 a ticket with food and with everything else, with my D-box seat if I want to be crazy, right? It could cost me upwards of $35 a ticket or $30 a ticket with everything else. Okay, I get 2 hours of entertainment you know, maybe watching a film that's 3D that doesn't belong, that shouldn't be 3D, right? And then I go home and it's done, right? I buy a game, I spend $70, but it can last 80 hours, right? 80 hours. And that's where entertainment is going. I really believe we're going to have more interactive entertainment in the future and less of this kind of experience because of dollars and cents, man. I mean, you know what? Yeah, you can get together with a bunch of friends and see a movie. It's a good experience. We can talk about it. We can rate it together. We can critique it. And we have a common experience we just went through, right? But what's different about us getting together as a class on some kind of online MMO, right? And charging in there and having some fun there too. It can be done. And we can spend 80 hours, 100 hours, 200 hours with way, way lower expenses. So because of that, because the entertainment industry is being threatened by the video game industry because of entertainment, it's entertainment, however you slice it, right? That's why this rating stuff has become so prevalent. And it's because it can hit everybody. It's not just kids that play video games. It's adults that play video games now. And it's an alternate form of entertainment. I'm not going to talk about location. This part of the slide deck talks about localization. Like, for example, if I want to make my game, talking about audiences, and I want to make my game that it can work in Germany, then I got to convert or translate everything to German, right? There's a bit of programming involved to do this, right? If I hard code, this is the only thing I'm going to say about this because I'm not going to talk about it. If I hard code all my text, all my UI, hard code it, right? Then I can't localize, right? So we don't hard code anything. We create files that we access. So when I choose English, that file gets loaded in and replaces all my labels, all my buttons, everything, all my sounds, right? The sounds get replaced, everything gets replaced so that it's localized to that specific locale. This can be very costly, especially if you're operating in 150 countries. Yeah. Every game that you want to make that's in another country that you want to sell for Germany, as an example, if you want it to be successful, you got to translate it for the language. If you want to sell it there, then you got to do it. I mean, I'm not going to sell my game to Russia, and this is in Russian, right? Say that again? They speak English, I know, but still, there's a demand for games in other languages, cinematics. How many times have you downloaded a Russian game? Anybody download Russian games, right? Right. And they're all in another language. Why do those games exist? Why do you have language options? You have language options, especially French in this country, because we want to cater, we want to be a bilingual country. We want to, especially here, if you're making a game that you want maximum market share, and it might be required too, in some markets, to make it French as well. Yeah.
So just to go on top of what he said, yes, in Germany they speak English as a business language, but when someone is sitting at home in their boxer shorts, they don't want to be speaking it like a business language. They want to know what they speak to their friends to.
Sure.
Have a UI that they're most familiar with in the language that they've learned since they were a baby. Like something simple. They want to enjoy the experience in the country they're working.
Yes.
It's also kind of pride for a lot of countries. I find that people get really happy, especially in Brazil, when you get localization for
sure
games, right?
Yeah. But you make it in there. You get a Brazilian speaker, like a Brazilian Portuguese speaker to make it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a good that because when you go to Europe and you actually start talking to people, they know all the movies that are coming up from the US. They even know the series. They're up to date.
They do, but
and then I asked them,
which part of Europe are you talking about?
Belgium, France, and Germany.
Okay. I know for me, when I go to Greece, everything has been, half of it's been voiced over too, right? In Greece, I've been to Bosnia, I've been to Croatia, I've been to a bunch of places like that. And I'll tell you, they voice over everything, right? They have their Croatian actors and they voice over the parts. You can't understand a goddamn thing, right? Unless you understand Croatian, which I kind of do, right? So at the end of the day, right, localization is real, right? It doesn't matter whether you're making games or you're making other software, right? It's a consideration. If you want to widen your audience, right, then you localize. You sit there and you get someone to translate, but that now is another build. Now you got to think about, you create new graphics sometimes. The graphics are inappropriate. The buttons have to be redone. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. Who remembers that old, there was an old thing back in, there's a business thing that happened Back in the day, they made this car in the States. Did I tell you about this before?
No, I know the story.
Okay, back in the day, there's this car that was made. It was really, really, I don't know, popular. It was called the Nova, Chevy Nova, right? Huge, right? What does Nova mean in Spanish? Hispanic? Nova. No go. And they tried to market it like that, right? So they took Nova, the name, put it down there. It was really popular in the States. No one bought the car. It was called Nova, right? Here
I thought it was a different one. It was MRD.
Yeah.
And they tried to put it in France, and then divided it because they pronounced it as metal.
Right. So the thing is, right? You're right, and there's a bunch. So now think about all the cars. Now all the cars that you make, they make Civic. What the hell is that, right? They make car names that have nothing to do with anything, so they can carry forward those names, and they're not language specific. They're made up names, right? Because if you make a real name, then you got to translate it, and it translates wrong half the time. But going back to this, the reason why we do it, I know what you're saying. You're saying that they love English culture. They're attracted to English culture. In some places they are, but there are some places that demand that if you want to sell your product there, especially in Quebec, it needs to be translated, right?
But then sometimes, even if it comes from like
Doesn't hurt you at all,
outside,
yeah.
if a product comes from the outside and it's not from their culture, they still won't buy it even if it's translated to their culture. For example, people in Germany, even though it's not translated, because they are attracted to that culture of the Western states, they still buy it.
They will because the culture, because they want to buy into the culture. They're attracted to the culture, right?
So
that stuff.
Practically, you don't have to invest the money to translate.
You do. In AAA games, you do. You always do. And the thing
This
is,
the thing. There will always be French cases, but it's very hard to argue against statistics, right? If you look at AAA games like FIFA, right? If you don't translate FIFA, it will not do as well. It will not sell as many copies if you did translate it. So you can argue I shouldn't have to, but you're just throwing away money at this point. There's no point in banging your head against the wall when you can just do the translation and actually make more money off the game. Some people will not like it, you're right. But statistically speaking, I think that's the argument here. It makes more money to do that.
so we're timing out. The lesson is, if you're going to take this away, if it's going to be on the exam at all, we do localization. We have to plan the programming and the art assets, the sound and everything, because it becomes part of our bill. Okay, guys, good luck next week. I'm going to send you some information on Slack and Blackboard. Please take a look at those two things because I want you guys to be informed about your exam. Remember, it's all day from 9 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon on Friday. Next Friday, your exam will be a take-home exam. Thank you.